take a look at the market movements this morning with Brian Thomas. He is Portfolio Manager at Laurium Capital. Brian, a very good morning. Welcome to the SA Morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Perhaps let's get straight into it, Brian, and talk about the results that Vodacom has released. How are those looking?
Look, there were slightly disappointing set of results overall. If you look at it, the EPS came down 4%, but there were a couple of one-offs in the previous year that one needs to strip out, etc. So if you really look at underlying results, EPS was probably up around 2%. Now remember, Vodacom's quite a diversified business at the moment. Roughly 55% of the business is in South Africa, and the rest is in the rest of Africa. And there was kind of a mix of results out of the rest of Africa. The South African business, although revenue was growing 4%, the margin that they make on the revenue came down, mainly as a result of load shedding. So yet another of the businesses that we've spoken about on this program that have been negatively impacted by the effects of load shedding.
And taking a look at other results, let's look at Shoprite and Premier Group. They released updates as well, and it was quite clear with both of them that load shedding was a huge concern and continues to be a huge concern and really affecting their performance.
Yes, more so for Shoprite than for Premier. So Shoprite actually had a very good set of numbers. This was an update for their first quarter, and they came through with sales growth of 13% on the quarter. It's important to point out that that's off a very high base in the same quarter the last year. So if you look at the last year, the growth was around 18% in revenue, so doing very well. But they do point to higher load shedding costs. So it's cost them an extra 90 million relative to the same quarter last year, taking them to a load shedding cost in the quarter alone of 286 million rand. So that's fairly significant for a group like Shoprite. If you look at Premier, yes, they've been impacted by load shedding, but to a lesser extent. I mean, interesting sort of numbers here. Basically, Premier in the year is going to spend 60 million rand on diesel costs over the course of the year. They produce 600 million loaves of bread. So it's around about 10 cents a loaf of bread that load shedding is costing them. So a far lower impact on the likes of Premier relative to the likes of Shoprite.
When we look at Shoprite, they seem to be gaining, or they are actually gaining market share against their competitors. What would that be attributed to when you look at Shoprite, perhaps strategy, positioning? What is giving them the edge at this time?
Sure, they actually quoted in their update that they've gained market share for the last 55 months in a row, which is a very it's an astounding statistic if you think about it. I think Pick n Pay has had its issues. We spoke about Pick n Pay some time back on this show. They're giving up a bit of market share to Shoprite, and Shoprite operates with a traditionally higher margin. So the margin that they make on the goods that they sell. With that higher margin, they can afford to kind of reduce prices to bring people into their stores and just reduce their margin slightly. And they're using that very effectively at the moment to drive market share gains, while the likes of Pick n Pay and Spar to a certain extent are struggling.
Let's take a look at Harmony also releasing their operational update.
Yeah, a pretty decent set of numbers out of Harmony, actually. Production running up 17% on the year, which is very good. And it's really as a result of better underground recovery grades at a couple of their mines in South Africa. Mponeng was the biggest one. So a decent set of numbers out of Harmony, and capitalizing on a gold price which is up around 5% this year in dollar terms, and 16% in rand terms. So a decent set of numbers from Harmony over the first quarter.
And just looking at minerals and commodities as well, how are they looking for the future as far as the general global performance of Harmony Gold, as well as gold as a commodity?
Yeah, look, gold is always a difficult one to call. I remember as a student listening to the great Clem Santa, and he said to me at that time that the gold price is going to go up and it's going to go down, not necessarily in that order. And it's kind of what we think about the gold price. It's very difficult to predict. Over time, though, it has actually been a decent asset to own. We remain at Laurium reasonably constructive on the platinum group metals. We think that both platinum and palladium will end up in a deficit over the course of the next 12 months. And as a result, we're probably more constructive on the platinum group metals than gold.
And looking at the JSE, some rather positive results, coming out of the JSE yesterday, pretty much in line with global market. But there is a really big focus on the US-China talks. Break that down for us.
Yes, so the Xi Jinping and President Biden will be meeting. I think it's tomorrow. It's kind of on the sides of an Asia Cooperation Summit that's taking place in San Francisco, and a number of issues for them to discuss. I mean, China still is America's biggest trading partner. China's struggled of late with US going through a nearshoring, so basically using less of Chinese-produced goods. And they've been tit for tat with the likes of China, saying that Chinese government employees can't use Apple-produced phones, etc. So there's a lot for them to iron out. And I think it'll be a big meeting. As I say, the first time in 6 years that they've met. And just looking at some of the footage coming out of San Francisco, the US is taking it very seriously. They've really cleaned up the act in San Francisco ahead of that visit.
Was this expected? US-China, because we do know the dynamics that exist between them. And for them to actually be sitting around a table and talking.
Yes, I think it was expected that they would eventually get together. You know, it's not only the presidents that talk. There are conversations that happen at different levels of government all the time between these two countries. So I don't think they haven't been talking at all, but just maybe not as publicized as one would think.
All right, well, we'll certainly be looking out for what comes out of those meetings. What do you hope will come out?
Look, I hope it'll be constructive. There's a big geopolitical angle on this one as well. We know that China has said that they have that they would like to retake Taiwan, and I think that there will be a lot of persuasion that should come through from Biden's side. That is not a particularly good idea at this point in time. So I'm hoping for some positive commentary coming out of that meeting.
All right. Well, thank you so much for today's markets as well as the business news of the day.